This sequence of talks is a very interesting one, and is celebrating the famous science fiction book, The Three-Body Problem, by Nora Csiszar, who was a very imaginative and very inventive, engaging writer, and has stirred up a lot of interest. However, he wasn't complete about what he did, but he gave a very thorough and good view of what's going on, including putting a lot in from the human viewpoint, because his readers are human. Let me start talking about the first thing, which is what's the likely situation with advanced civilizations, and are we threatened by anything like this? Because this was a very advanced book in terms of where we're in history. Surprisingly, because of the capabilities, technical capabilities we have, and the fact that some people have wealth, we're at a point where some humans have decided, without checking with the rest of the human civilization, to try and make contact with alien civilizations. And I belong to a group of people who have been worried about the search for extraterrestrial intelligence and about what should the formats be if you should meet an advanced civilization, what should be the issues that are dealt with on the Earth, and what would be the right format and the right circumstances, and when would you think that you should send signals to people, and when you think you should hold back. And so let me address those a little bit before we get into the more speculative and the more direct questions that come out of the three-body problem. So the first question is, how likely are there other alien civilizations out there? So we can get a rough scale of that fairly easily. Our own galaxy has about 100 billion stars, 10 to the 11 stars, and a good fraction of those stars have planets around them, and sometimes multiple planets, that is planetary systems. There is on the scale of 10%, which have planets that are in what we consider the habitable zone, that would support good stable life, the kind that we see on the Earth. And so what that means is we expect there's at least on the scale of 10 billion habitable planets in our own galaxy, but we think there's also in the visible universe on the scale of 100 billion galaxies. So that each of those would also have on the scale of 1 billion or more planetary systems, or that would be habitable ones. And so that means there's a lot of opportunity for there to be life on other planets, and some of them may have advanced to the point of being advanced civilizations. We don't know how fast or slow that is, although we're beginning to answer some of the questions about what the probabilities are and what things are going on as we make advances, and science is making a lot of progress now. So it's not surprising. It might be that life in our own galaxy is rare. Worrying about life in other galaxies is more theoretical, because the time it takes, even going at the speed of light, to go from one galaxy to the next is in the millions of years. And so we don't worry about that so much as the impact it will have on society. One of the scenarios that we've considered and come up with is, suppose that you have built a great new telescope, in this case a big radio telescope, such as the 500-meter telescope, and you're using that to search for radio signals from extraterrestrial, and you would make a discovery, you see some signal coming. Who do you tell? Well, the criteria that we finally worked out that was the only stable one that should work out is you must announce it to the whole world, because if other countries think that you're saving that signal and hiding it and using that information either to make an alliance with the aliens or to get their technology, it creates a big instability on the Earth and a big amount of problems. And there's always going to be tension between the national government wanting to keep things secret and the scientists understanding that it's important to spread that knowledge. But it goes in another direction. If a country is trying to make an alliance with some alien civilization, that's a threat to all the other countries in the world and so forth. But it's very likely that some of these alien civilizations would be much more advanced than we are. That is, if you look at our solar system, we know that the Earth and the solar system is about 4.55 billion years old. We also know that there are galaxies that are over 11 billion years old. And that means there were probably some solar systems that were formed not long after that or on the same time scale. So they could have been around several billion years longer than the Earth. So even if a society is slowly developing, those extra billion years can go a long way. Now, there are other things we'll talk about in the next talk that say how long you can stay at a star and why you have to advance and so forth. The issue is very much a question of what would those advanced civilizations do? How would they regard our civilization or beginning civilization? Because we're actually quite a young species in a lot of ways. And in terms of the categories of how you would view advanced civilizations, we're not quite an advanced civilization. We're not really starfaring. We're barely planetary faring race. And that means we have very rudimentary kinds of tools and abilities to affect the situations around us. But there are some people who think that they're so excited by aliens, that think that contact aliens would be this tremendous advance. So some people are looking to search for signals from aliens and evidence they're aliens. And there are other ways you can look. Rather than radio, you can look at the optical, you can look at other things. There was recently a very interesting object that passed through the solar system, went through. There are about 3 of those a day. So it's, you have to be something special for you to really pay attention to that. But our solar system is visited by things from, other stars fairly often. And the question is, would any of those been intelligent made or so forth, and evidence that there's an advanced civilization? That would be scary if they came to visit us, but we'll see. So people are doing these searches, and many of those searches are funded privately because the governments weren't putting too much money on it. Now some governments are spending money on doing these searches, but there are still wealthy private individuals doing that. But some of them want to do things like send radio signals. There have been people who have access to like the big Arecibo telescope and have directed signals to nearby star systems in the hope that they would get a reply back in a few years, because the nearest star systems are like 4.5 light years away, so it takes light round trip 10 years on that kind of scale. That's the one where you would really like to have the world think about the issues and think about, are all the aliens going to be positive that we're going to send signals out to? Are they all going to be mature, adult, well-behaved, well-mannered civilizations? Or will some of them be marauders and come and say, oh, it's a society there, they have a very nice environment, we could go because we've earned our own homeland and now we need a new place to live, or whatever. So there's more than that, and there's even funded now the Breakthrough Starshot program, which is to send out to say the 50 most interesting candidates, very small little satellites, to go out there, take pictures, and broadcast back to the Earth the information. And it's hard to believe that some of those wouldn't be noticed if there was an advanced civilization there. So there is an issue that the Earth is already making itself known potentially to other civilizations. And if you think about it, it isn't perfectly clear that every civilization will be benevolent to less developed civilizations. But if you think that your civilization is a very good civilization, it's very likely that every civilization has a pretty high opinion of their own civilization. And they know that the more assets they have available, the more star systems, the more resources they have available, the longer their system is going to last, their civilization is going to last. So there will be competition for resources, even among benevolent advanced societies. And so there'd have to be some kind of agreement on who gets to exploit which planets and which stars and so forth. And so this is a tricky kind of a question that requires a lot of thinking about and requires people to understand the implications of what they're doing. Now the three-body problem makes that really clear by making it this close to destroying the whole Earth. And it's a big issue to deal with.